Thank you for waiting for a long time. And now we would like to start the press conference. Well, I would like to introduce to you the members in attendance. To your extreme left, Mr. Mitsuhiko Tanaka, member of the Commission, Mr. Ishibashi, member Sakiyama, member Oshima, member Yokohama, Chairman Kurokawa, member Hachisuka, member Koichi Tanaka, member Oshima, member Sakurai, member Nomura. I myself, my name is Mori, in charge of public relations at the Secretariat. It's 7 p.m. and we are scheduling approximately 2 hours for this press conference. Thank you for coming. Then, as a first item, I would like Chairman Kurokawa to give you some words of greetings, and followed by the short comments by respective commission members. Then the outline of the report will be explained, followed by Q&A later. Today we have a number of attendees in the press conference, and I really hope for the smooth conduct of the meeting. Chairman Kurokawa, microphone is yours. Yes. Today, despite your busy schedule, thank you very much indeed for joining this evening for our press conference of the Commission. On behalf of all the members of the Commission, we would like to extend a word of appreciation to all of you. And the Chairman, as well as Commission members, were very happy and so resolved to make submission of report to the presidents of the upper and lower houses of the Japanese National Diet, and submission was made at 1 o'clock in the afternoon today. With the submission of report, our investigation work was completed. The report submitted today will be at the hands of the National Diet members from now on. The findings and the recommendations of our report be deliberated at the National Diet. In the ceremony of the handing the report over to the President, we made a sincere request that the report be fully considered at both houses. I would like to report to you the successful submission of the report. I will give you another round of explanation as to the recommendations of the report, but we hope the recommendation be implemented one after another by directing unsurrendered efforts toward that goal. This is the duty and mission of each member of the National Diet and every single person of the nation. And the accident is not over, still continuing. By having the recommendation to be implemented, we hope that lost confidence toward Japan be recovered, as well as lost confidence in the minds of people toward the Japanese government be restored in the future. Primarily, the findings and recommendation of the report be discussed at the sessions of the both houses of the National Diet. For the deliberation, we badly need your support from the press and media, as well as the people of Japan. Mr. Mori, then I would like to invite the individual commission member to give a short comment looking back at the commission activities. Member Mitsuhiko Tanaka. Good evening. My name is Mitsuhiko Tanaka. Well, I'm supposed to give one word of observation, but it's been 6 months since I started to involve in the commission. But the investigation of the accident, together with member Ishibashi, we talk about we investigate the causation of the accident. The number of the investigators who cooperate with us was very limited, and the time was rather short. And we did what we could do to our best. But it doesn't mean that investigation was completely done. And we did not have tools, so we couldn't really strengthen our evidence by running on the computers. But accident actually does not progress on its own. There's some intervention of the people. It's a man-machine interactions that actually have a force on the progression of the accident, not based upon the material. So how the workers at site operated the system. So we heard a lot of stories and statements from the people working at the site. In that process, I think there was a very important fact. SRV, stress relief valve of number 1, if the valve didn't work, the pressure vessel will be going through the very hard situation. But, it looks like SRV, in comparison with the number 2s and number 3, in number 1, the SRV might not have been working properly, according to the statements of the workers or operators at the site. It could be indicative. A small break, a loss of coolant accident could have been taken place. A small lock, as we call, could have been taken place. The fact that SRV was not functional, and that was the area I was very much interested, but we couldn't really verify because it's the system within the container vessel. But that was one of the problems that I hope to urge the people's attention. And Mr. Ishibashi.
I am a member of the commission. My name is Ishibashi. As far as the period that we were allotted, we were given 4 months and a half to do our investigation, and the National Diet of Japan Fukushima Nuclear Accident Independent Investigation Commission came up with their independent report during this period. And if that great tsunami had not happened, then this accident would not have happened. That's not something that can be said by any means. And as far as the Fukushima Daiichi, since the construction of this nuclear power plant and the facts, we've also looked at the situation prior to 3/11 and the strength and the capability to withstand the earthquakes and tsunamis. As a human being also has that innate strength to be able to withstand assaults upon its health. The nuclear power plant was also not fully capable to withstand the tsunami and the earthquake. And the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, it does have to do with its own unique characteristics, but is it just about that? I don't think you can say that. It's written in the report as well. As far as TEPCO is concerned, with the Federation of Electric Power Companies, the electric power companies have been working during the time of the reform of the content of the anti-seismic content of the laws and regulations. They've tried to make the conditions favorable for them, and there were great many efforts expended to delay the process. So the same could be said for the other nuclear power plants as well. And this situation needs to be investigated and verified fully. And this report talks about the necessity of that. So when we think about the anti-seismic safety qualities of the nuclear power stations, this needs to be reviewed. For every one of those nuclear power stations, we need to have the people of our country, each and every one of them, read these reports. But it is also very important to have the media relay to the people of our country and around the world the content of these reports. So we ask for your cooperation. Well, from Member Sakiyama, yes, I am Sakiyama, a member of this commission. And as far as the NAIC is concerned, the indirect and direct reasons for this accident, that was something that we were tasked to investigate. However, regrettably, we in Japan experience earthquakes quite frequently, and we have 54 nuclear power stations, and these were created in such a country where earthquakes are very frequent. That is one of the indirect reasons as to why the accident had happened. Well, why was it that this had transpired? As far as NAIC is concerned, we do feel that it is regrettable that measures were not taken to prevent such an accident from happening. We need to further educate through the schools and through receiving the help of the media as well as the social system, and begin our further investigations into what can be done to prevent these kinds of accidents from happening. And also, I looked further into the health effects of being exposed to radiation. There are matters that we could not have learned about if we were not doing our activities. ICRP members and the nuclear industry and the electric power company industry, and the relationship between them is very close. So therefore, there was an underestimation that had taken place, and that is a matter that still needs to be further investigated. That is all I would like to say. Well, yes, from Member Yokoyama, we would like to hear next. I am Yokoyama, a member of this commission. This time, we have conducted very many hearings vis-a-vis many people, including many experts. And there are, of course, many people who are very excellent in their level of knowledge. But as far as the common sense that they had espoused, it really was not the common sense of the society, so to speak. They're not very interested in the knowledge of other things. For example, emergency power source, if something fails, then the others will fail. Anyone will understand. And my field is architecture. So when architecture as a field does its thinking, needs to decide what would be suitable for the location. So why was it that all these other ideas are not of interest to these experts in the field? We wondered about that. And even if it's in the same field, there have been 2 accidents previous to this accident that had happened. So there needed to be a complete investigation and exploration of what had taken place, and to come up with the necessary framework to be able to prevent such accidents from happening again. Japan has leading-edge technology, whether it be earthquakes or other natural disasters. Maybe they were not listening to what needed to be listened to. They had a lot of pride, and the science is not perfect, so there must be other means by which to prevent these accidents. They must have considered this. There was that need. And if there is a necessity to say something, one needs to speak up. So therefore, pride was something that existed, but courage was needed. And the world has been changing over time. And it's not just nuclear energy here in Japan, but in nuclear energy as well. We have a feeling that maybe we're 20 years behind. So therefore, is that reflection something that is being done seriously right now? That's not the case. It's been about 16 months, and it seems as if there really isn't much serious reflection taking place in this regard. Therefore, we need to repeatedly explain this matter. We feel strongly about that. Thank you very much. Now we'd like to have Member Hachiska speak, please. Ms. Hachiska. I am Hachiska. I myself, 6 months ago, was chosen as a member of this commission. Why was it that I was chosen as a member of this commission? I'm sure a great many people wondered about that. However, for 6 months, what was my position? And how did I relate to everyone here, members of this commission? I wondered about that. But I am someone who has been affected by this accident. I am from that area, and I needed to relate to everyone of this commission what sort of situation we had lived through. And many realities became evident working on this commission. There were very many shocking things. Each one of them, if I'm asked about them, I might not be able to answer and raise each and every one of them. However, for someone who went through this experience, it was a very difficult thing for me. We have evacuated people in the area, and we are not able to go back to our normal daily lives. The hands of the clock have stopped. And today, we have submitted to the members of the Diet our report that we put together. So how is it that the members of the Diet will read through the report and implement what needs to be implemented? I would like to continue to appeal to the members of the Diet to act upon what we are recommending. If people make a bit more of an effort, and if a bit more confirmation was taking place, this kind of accident would not have taken place, possibly. I was in Okumamachi for over 40 years, and perhaps I was not disinterested in nuclear energy, but I did not have the knowledge that I needed to have residing there regarding nuclear energy. But these past 6 months, I've worked with the members of the commission and have felt very many things and thought about many things. And today I feel is the start of my new life today, that this report has been submitted. And from the point of view of those affected by this accident, I would like to utilize this report and continue to make my appeals. Thank you very much for your understanding and cooperation. We would like to have Dr. Koichi Tanaka speak. I am Koichi Tanaka, a member of this commission. I would like to speak a little bit about the future, if I may. The hearings that I actually participated in were few in number, but there were many things that went against scientific proof, which is the notion of something being completely safe. And we need to be able to think about the people and think about receiving the trust of the people and conduct our reform and improvements. If that sort of thing is done, then we do have a bright future before us here in Japan as well. If you will look at the report itself that the NAIIC has put out, or this summary, you can see the message that we as members of the Commission, together with the chairman, put out. We'd appreciate it if you could please refer to that to understand what I'm trying to say here. And next member, Oshima. I'm Oshima. As far as this report is concerned, Fukushima nuclear power station accident was a man-made accident. it was concluded. And we investigated the background and found out that there were organizational issues, systemic issues, as well as human-related issues and crisis management and governance issues. And all of these interacted with one another and resulted in the accident occurring. That seems to be the essential way to grasp the accident and why it had happened. If I am to put it another way, this accident ought to have happened, was destined to happen, and it happened. But if we had prepared adequately for it, it could have been prevented. I do feel that way as well. There are many lessons that we have learned. The most important lesson, from my point of view, is that the people's health and safety and environment needs to be thought about first and foremost, and we need to come up with the safety culture that is necessary to assure this and to rebuild this. And even if we create a new sack for sake, it's not good enough. We need to put in a new bottle of sake in that new sack that will carry that sake. So we do feel that this is the first step to that effort. Next, we would like to have Member Sakurai speak. Yes, I am Sakurai, a member of this commission. I was looking at what had happened after 3/11. And during the 5 months, there were many people that we had heard from, and many people had great knowledge and expertise. And after 3.11, many of them have been working hard. However, what was the result? And from the point of view of the world and the people and the mass media, how were they looked at? There was a huge gap that existed between how they felt about things and how they were being looked at. Risk zero seemed to be the premise when nuclear energy is being considered. When you think about risk zero, there really are not countermeasures that are necessary. Because if countermeasures are to be put together, then this might make the people in the area feel anxious. But the premise must not be risk zero. The people of the area around the nuclear power station, it seems as if a good number of people felt unsure about the safety of it, but a great number of people also put their trust in the safety of the nuclear power station. But as a result of the accident occurring, all of a sudden, they feel this distrust of nuclear power stations in general. This is a regrettable thing. This must not happen again. And we felt very strongly about that. So therefore, our thoughts that we have vis-a-vis the residents of these areas, if you could read the final portion mentioned, you will understand. Last, Mr. Nomura, please.
Good evening. My name is Nomura. And with respect to the activities of our commission in some form or the other, thank you very much for your coverage in your media and also expressing your constructive opinions from time to time. In the report, when you look at the pages, there are phrases you see here and there. For example, one of those words is capture. The word capture appears quite often at the various pages of the report. In using the word capture in the report, not only me, but within the other commission members, we had discussions many times. In the causes of the accident, there were structural problems existing, which were expressed in the one word, capture. Thus far, the safety myth or nuclear village were utilized to express and characterize the relationship. By using those words, sometimes our thinking has been altered or stopped. in analyzing what comes next in the future, we use the word capture to categorize the relations of various parties. Actually, being the party which is being regulated actually captures the party which regulates the industry. More specific ways, there were several opportunities to rectify such relationship, and there were opportunities to prevent the March 11th. But nuclear power industry did various actions by the use of power of the utilities. The enough regulations were not really drafted and implemented to avoid any countermeasures. And also, the regulatory body was not equipped with the expertise and enough knowledge. And sometimes the personal appointments were made not in an appropriate way. So the TEPCO, which actually captures the regulatory body, had some structural problems as well. So this is one of the outcomes and findings of our investigative activities as shown in the report. As a method to let this finding know, through this report, the Commission has a full responsibility in terms of the findings of the Commission, and also Commission meetings were open to the public, not only in Japan but outside Japan, to let the people, the public, see what's going on in the Commission. This is the first attempt, independent commission established by the law, legislation by National Diet since the modern history of Japan. So it was a trial and error process. We will always try to position ourselves in the light of the first experience, and we have given a deep thought to it by sometimes hearing the other piece of opinion. Well, in words, we say that regulatory body has not expertise. And even in the defense in depth, for example, the head of NISA, for example, could not really give the expert answer. That kind of scene was broadcasted on the web, and public could see how the answer is given, or the witness was not able to give the discernible answer. But anyway, the commission was established through legislation by the National Diet, and commission conducted investigations with the ground principle of the process being open to the public. I think that was a kind of a new experience for us, and I really hope that the media is still covering this issue, and I really we appreciate the efforts made by the media to cover the Commission's activities so far. So we do not have much time, so we would like to proceed to the explanation of the outline of the report by Commission Member Nomura, followed by Q&As. Including the outline of a report and hindsight, looking back at the investigation activities of the Commission, would you like to explain to the press for 10 minutes or so? We would like to secure as long a time as possible for Q&A, so let me be brief. For the press, I think you already have read the reports. And also, this press conference is being broadcasted on live. Even if the people have not really read through the report, I would like to give the brief outline of the report so that people can follow Q&A at a later time. Actually, we conducted the hearing of the 1,167 people for a total of 900 hours. The report was prepared based upon the information gathered through hearings, and there were 20 meetings of the Commission. And we couldn't really made hearings, all of hearings be public, so we summoned some of the witnesses in the meetings which were open to the public. Let me emphasize that we do not really prepare the report only based upon the witnesses, but also the many hearings. And we had 3 town meetings, and commission members actually visited the area. And also we conducted overseas site visits as well. And based upon this range of activities, we have prepared the final report. In terms of the composition of the report, there are 10 items for findings, and we wrote 7 recommendations because of lack of time. I just want to highlight each point. First, to share the recognition, the commission members spent quite a lot of time jointly. And we had a very active discussions during those sessions, and we reached a shared recognition. First point of the common understanding is that accident is still continuing at this moment. In particular, the building of the Fukushima nuclear power plant is not restored and still at the dangerous situation, and affected people are still living in dire conditions, and the clocks are stopped when the disaster took place. And by publishing this report, we commission did not consider that the verification was over. There are still items which need future verification. Second, as the fundamental cause of the accident, even prior to March 11th, those causes were pre-existing. Tsunami and earthquake could have been countermeasures beforehand, but the postponement of the back check and also the total loss of power, that possibility had been indicated well before March 11th, but countermeasure was not really considered. And also, actually, the industry side was requested to make a composition why the loss of power accident countermeasure was not necessary. And also B5B concept emerging in the United States was not really taken into consideration in Japan. So there were various opportunities to take the countermeasures because of the reverse situations of the party being regulated and the party which regulate, that relation was quite reversed. For the industry side, it was very important not to have the existing reactor operating ratio to decline and to avoid any litigation risks. Because of that possible risks on the side of industry, there are no enough regulations, effective regulation to be implemented. That is what we call the regulatory capture, and that is one of those are some of the reasons why we characterize this accident as man-made disaster. The third point is the direct causes of the accident, consideration of those direct causes of the accident. An earthquake or tsunami, which was the major cause of accident? If people talk about the interim report of the government commissions, and typical report said that the tsunami was the cause of accident, if not earthquake. But in our commission, we couldn't really say that there was no effect by earthquake because of the surrounding environment. And as written here, we couldn't. This particular commission couldn't really draw a conclusion that there was no earthquake effect on the accident. Once after Scrum was triggered, the biggest intensity of earthquake took place, and stress relief valve probably might not have been functional of number one. SR valve itself might have been damaged by the earthquake in number one unit. Further on, in number one, the small size loss of cooling accident, or LOCA or LOCA, could have been taken. The small size crack might have been occurred in the pipings. But at this moment, we couldn't really go into the nuclear reactors. It was very difficult to verify those phenomena. So we need further verifications to really draw definitive conclusion. The fourth point. The workers at the site. Some people say the workers at the site might have made mistakes. That was a point emphasized by the government's independent commission. But we consider that people working at the site did their maximum efforts, and there is no, we believe, elements of negligence or mistakes. It's very difficult to identify what specific mistakes or negligence they make. There could have been other action they could have been made, but the preparation was not enough because of the headquarters of TEPCO's countermeasures vis-à-vis such accident aside was not enough. But within that constraint, I think workers at site did their best they could. In terms of the emergency response, the NISA did not really function very well. And also, aside from the specified command and control system, the command and control system deviated from the channel which should have been. So there was a problem in that, but as the background, the operator actually did not really come to the fore to be responsible for something. But whenever countermeasure was contemplated, the TEPCO's management tried to pressure the regulator to the favor of TEPCO. So TEPCO is not really in a position to criticize the action by the Prime Minister's residence, or TEPCO is not in a position that as if TEPCO is a victim of such intervention by the Prime Minister's residence. Point 6 is evacuation was not conducted in a proper way due to lack of information. Evacuees had to evacuate without any belongings, or some evacuation had to evacuate many times from point A to point B, and also some evacuees have to evacuate to an even higher dosage level area. There was an entire confusion due to the lack of accurate information given to the residents. The planning and idea for evacuation at the time of emergency was not really given with full thought. And also the problem resides in the communication, how the communication is done on the government side. The point 7, even at this moment, a part of the national land could not be utilized. This quite tremendous damage was given. Also, there was a serious damage on people's health. And because of the accident, the evacuees could not really see any special roadmap to their normal life. In those surroundings, people were quite interested. Is there any threshold of the radiation level? The Commission considered that for the acute disorder, there could be some threshold. How much would be the tolerable radiation level, which would not cause the acute disorder, acute effect? But when it comes to the low dosage level, even the low dosage, there will be exposure to radiation on a proportional basis. There would be no threshold for the low dosage exposure. And based upon these findings, there are several perspectives for solution of the problem. The regulatory capture be actually reformed structurally. There are several problems on the industry side. The idea for risk management is fundamentally wrong. and also the management characteristics will have to be drastically changed. On the regulator side, not only the forms and positioning of the regulatory bodies would not be sufficient, the substance of the body will have to be reformed, and the body should have an organizational capability to be complying with the internationally accepted standards. For the legislation, the nuclear-related laws, actually, the nuclear disaster law is located positioned on the general disaster law, but there will be a full integrated nuclear energy and nuclear energy disaster law in integrated way with the resident health and safety-centered approach. And based upon those findings, there are 7 recommendations. Put them shortly. There are huge problems in regulatory body. So we recommend to have the ongoing surveillance by the Permanent Commission, which will be established by the National Diet. The second recommendation is to review the risk management system of the government, not to distort command and control system. The solid system be built up. Particularly, we called off-site and on-site, but technical response with respect to reactor be depending on the experts. The recommendation 3 is the government response vis-à-vis the affected resident, particularly for the evacuees, is very solid. The countermeasures be prepared, particularly for the affected people who have with the heavy concern. Government should make countermeasures to mitigate their concerns for health management. Recommendation 4, so far the industry got together with the federations of the electric power companies to pressure the regulatory body. But among the utilities in the future, they should try to identify the best practices by incorporating the progress of technology and best practices into their industry. So not for the utility industry to become the lobbying industry to loosen or relax the regulations, but enough surveillance be conducted to keep monitoring and the surveillance on the nuclear industry by sending the independent inspector to the site. And the recommendation 5 is the high-level independence, expertise, and the introductions of the new findings from overseas into Japan should be introduced into the new regulatory body. And the recommendation 6 is the nuclear power laws should be reconstructed with the first priority on the people's health and safety. Recommendation 7, this particular commission's work will be over, but in the future, National Diet should have the system to establish the independent commission, independent investigation commission, so that check and balance function among the 3 branches work properly by using a mechanism of establishing independent investigation commission by the National Diet. This completes the outline explanation of the report. Using the remainder of time, we would like to accommodate questions. And also, in the previous briefing section, we received a series of questions unanswered. So I would like to invite each commission member to give answers to the pending questions raised in the previous briefing session. First one is with respect to the rule of the session made public. Also, the questioner points to the defect of the law established in the commission. In our commission, there are materials submitted by the related bodies, and also there's a record of hearings. So we have quite number of information. Currently, we do not have rulers yet whether this piece of information be open or not to be open. So in the future, what materials be open or not to be open, or in terms of timing when that would be made public, and also standards of the decision for those materials to be open. We will consider this issue together with the chair and the members in consultation with the National Diet. And after the decision, then the materials will be open, and some of them may not be open, subject to the decision. The second is with respect to the explanations on the possibility of pullout of the workers. There was a question raised by Asahi Shimbun. Mr. Nomura.
Well, with regard to the pullout issue related to TEPCO, this is written in the report in several sections. It might be a little bit difficult to follow all that on the side of the cabinet, the Prime Minister's office. There has been a little bit of an explanation given and a graph that is provided, and perhaps there is this impression that that is the entirety of it. But as far as TEPCO's pullout is concerned, TEPCO's response, which has been from page 276 and following pages, there have been further details included regarding the various measures they were putting together, and the TV conference system. This we received the record of, and there is also the paper-based records that we have received. And aside from TEPCO, there had been communication between TEPCO and other bodies, and there have been information that have been received from them, and we conducted hearings vis-a-vis these individuals, and we were able to sort out and make our conclusions regarding the pullout issue, and whether the pullout was decided or not, and how this was relayed to the Prime Minister's office. This is also related as well. Putting it simply, as far as this report is concerned, it seemed as if to the Prime Minister's office there was a nuance that was expressed where the complete pullout was being considered. There was no mention regarding just leaving a few behind or just taking out a portion of the workers. It was very vague. And why was it that this was the case? First, whether pullout had been decided or not, it was not the president who would decide this. There are rules that are followed within TEPCO. The person who decides it would be the head of the reactor. So therefore, if one is not at the site, they would not know how many people are necessary. So therefore, as far as this on-site situation is concerned, they need to look at the situation and make their considerations as to how many need to remain. And there are, in stages, various considerations made. But there was no determination that was made. And on the 14th, in the evening of that day, there needed to be a determination made, and the reactor situation had become very dire. So what would be the number that would need to remain? This was considered. As far as how many ought to remain or whether that was discussed, there is no evidence to that. That is because they were working very hard on responding to this accident. But it seems as if there are so many people who are there, and a lot of people were office workers as well, that were women, and at the very least, they need to be able to pull out. That was something that crossed the mind of those who were involved in the activities. They really needed to make that determination then. However, as you are well aware, the SR valve had operated. So therefore, the crisis situation was alleviated for a time. And Mr. Yoshida, who was the head at that time of the power station, he didn't make a determination as to how many should be there. So therefore, TEPCO never said that a certain number will remain. and never gave a specific number. As far as TEPCO's president is concerned, there are various things that are said, but it seemed as if there was a vague expression as to how many ought to remain. And at that point in time, there had been consultations of various sorts with the Prime Minister's office. As I had said, this has to do with the management characteristics of TEPCO. There are some things that they want to decide, but the individual that feels that he would like to express this doesn't say this and waits for someone else to express it first. So therefore, things become very vague. And at that time, the Minister Kaeda had received a call to begin with, and there was a vent issue. And so he had a lot of distrust vis-a-vis TEPCO. So he did have this understanding that there would be a complete withdrawal on the part of TEPCO, and that cannot be helped. However, that information then went to Mr. Edano and then went to Prime Minister Kan, and the discussions as to the complete withdrawal of the workers then moved forward. So TEPCO really didn't decide anything that day. And the next day, the site situation became deteriorated. As you are well aware, 70 people, it was decided, would remain to deal with the situation. And there was an emergency response team that was left there. However, a great number of people were pulled out, and that was what was decided. And it was a few hours before President Shimizu was called to the Prime Minister's office. When he went to the Prime Minister's office, looking at the telephone records, he did make a final confirmation vis-a-vis Mr. Yoshida, and there was a certain grasp of the situation, and he was called to the Prime Minister's office. So at that time, when there was a complete pullout, he said, we are not thinking about that, and that's our understanding of the situation. So therefore, when we think about the facts and the complete withdrawal of the workers, Prime Minister Kan, for those who are trying to withdraw, the Prime Minister trying to put a stop to this and trying to save Japan is rather unrealistic. On the other hand, TEPCO put together the report saying that they were the victims, but we feel discomfort regarding that because the information was not relayed in a clear manner and responsibility was avoided, and TEPCO wanted to have the Prime Minister's office make the decision. That was a fact as well. That's what I'd like to say about that. Thank you very much. We don't have very much time. We'd like to move on. Next. As far as the IC issue pertaining to Unit 1, the scenario that the Commission put forth, when you think about what is written in the report, it seems unrealistic. But if you could please address this, Mr. Tanaka. Yes, I am Tanaka. I don't know if I can answer accurately or not, but before that, as far as what Mr. Nomura had said in his explanation, there was a mention of the SRV issue, and it seemed as if there was some incorrect issue. The SRV was not damaged. I'm not sure whether it was damaged or not by the earthquake, but it's not an SRV damage. The pressure went up to a certain level, and there was no proof that it had operated, and the piping might have had a leakage problem and trying to suppress the pressure, and that is written in page, if I'm to give you the page number, I apologize. Please bear with me. 239, Unit 1, and Unit 1's SR vent, was it operating or not? That is described very much in detail here. The sound of it operating was not heard. units 2 and 3, when it operates, this is the Mark 1 type donut type characteristic that is trying to suppress the rising of the pressure. And we did our comparative studies. When the SRV operates in the Mark 1 donut-shaped portion, there is quite a lot of vibration that is heard as a sound, and that has been said in the hearing. There's quite a lot of vibrational sound that is heard. And in Onagawa as well, the Mark 1 type sound was heard, and that was found out from the hearing that was conducted. And there was a total station blackout that took place in terms of Unit 1, and that sound was not heard even. That was what was said in the hearing. This is a very key issue, but we cannot say this with certitude. This necessitates more explanation. As far as the IC is concerned, related to that, there's a very important point that needs to be mentioned. As far as 55 C per hour in terms of the change in temperature, the operator had stopped the operation at that point, and TEPCO has been saying this over a year. And whether or not that was the case, the worker who actually stopped the IC, we had conducted multiple hearings with that individual. According to what we've heard, there is a privacy issue. So I'm just going to not mention the name of the workers, but there were three workers working on that IC portion. First, after the earthquake occurred, the IC was operating, and one person was saying he wanted to stop it because there was a leakage issue, because he was concerned about leakage. And the IC was operating, and the pressure was going down very quickly. There's a leakage concern. And whether there is a leakage or not, that was something that he was worried about. And he said to the other worker that he'd like to stop it for a time. Then let's stop it, he said, and let's try to control this pressure. So therefore, to a separate person, he said the 3A and the 3B vents were stopped, and 55 degrees per hour. This is the workers' understanding. It's not something that they weren't concerned about in the central control room. It's not that the temperature would show there, so it's very difficult to grasp what the situation actually is. So they did say they didn't stop it based on that. Of course, they were very concerned, but to directly stop that, the pressure was going down very rapidly, so there might have been a leakage concern. So they wanted to stop it for a period, and if they can stop the dropping of this pressure, then there would not be a leakage in terms of the IC. They wanted to confirm that. As far as 55 degrees per hour, that was in their standard operating procedures. NSIV is a procedure that they follow. However, it's in the complete pitch blackness that they are doing this. It's not that they're looking at the manual, but they've received the training that they needed. And 55 degrees per hour is included in the manual. And then when the pressure is controlled, and then now they're trying to bring it to a cold shutdown, they really need to think about this 55 degrees per hour. And there is a difference of several hours in between the starting point and the ending point. So the 55 degrees per hour was something. It seemed as if they're looking at a panel and what's indicated there, but that's not the situation at all. So therefore, this becomes a realm of imagination. But the 55 degrees per hour indication is something that they are very aware of, and the reason for that is because the operator was worried about the leakage, and that was the motivation to try to look into this in order that this issue will not arise. there is a mention about that 55-degree issue there in the report. And the IC issue that you've asked about, as far as the IC is concerned, the Hatamura report talks about how the operator's responsibility is being questioned. However, having heard from these individuals, as far as the IC is concerned, the best decision is being made after the tsunami came. Right after that, there is a blackout that takes place, and it's been stopped. So therefore, what happens thereafter? The operator, when they think about the issue, in the Hatamura report, once the battery goes out, there is a detector that checks the DC power. And at that time, automatically, there are 4 valves in the IC meter, and then this all closes up all of a sudden. But we've written that that is not there. And the reason for that is because the valve on the inside moves with AC and outside with DC. And then once the DC side stops, and then the inner side says it closes up and calls it the fail-safe, but it's the AC. So once the DC goes out, there is no reason for the AC to be live. And the reason for that is because the emergency diesel and the pressure that is obtained from that, it comes from the Metaclad and then goes through the inverter, and the regeneration begins, and the battery is utilized to operate that valve. And when you think about that procedure, when you think about the direct current, if it goes out, then the AC would not be operating. This is unthinkable. So therefore, what we think about is that when the emergency power source is out for whatever reason, why is it that just because the DC stops, the valve closes? Because the valve was actually left open. And as far as the TEPCO's final report is concerned, they changed the IC story. And the answer to that story is something that we've considered from the very beginning, and we've included that in our report. But our report is later than theirs, but that is our story. And so, therefore, when it rapidly declines, the level of the water, the hydrogen goes into the IC. The vent is completely open, and the hydrogen enters into the IC as a result. And that would be happening in the evening, most likely. So if that is the case, then the IC, when you think about the weight of the water, the gas is then turned into water, and then it goes around naturally. But once the hydrogen goes in, then it becomes too light, and it stops, and there's no circulation. And at that point, the IC would not be functioning. It would be 618 that it would become non-functional. That's our thinking. So therefore, whether or not that sort of thing would happen or not, that's mentioned here on page 239. 238 to 239. And as far as that hydrogen is concerned, the hydrogen gas that goes into water, which doesn't melt in water, dissolve in water, we did ask this of TEPCO, and we asked the manufacturer as well, and they all said, yes, that is the case. And TEPCO itself, in this final report, has said that. So therefore, the operator, thinking about this very complex matter, and the IC training facilities didn't exist then, but this story, as we've thought of, and to do the best operation and to make that judgment was something that could not be made. And that would be all from my end. However, if there are other questions, I'd like to answer at another point. Thank you.
And in the previous asked questions, actually we spent quite a long time in answering those questions. So I would like the Commission members to give the brief answer to the question already raised in the briefing session. In terms of the man-made disaster, well, actually, you wrote the man-made disaster in quote, man-made disaster, unquote. How did you put the quotation? Well, it's a total designation of man-made. It's not pointing to a specific person or particular system. IAEA and from the experiences of other countries, although what safety measures were recognized parties, they didn't take countermeasures. So man-made disasters was given. And I just want the readers' attention to the man-made disasters, in particular in case of absence of appropriate measures. And also, there's another question expecting the chairman's answer, where responsibility of the politics was not really referred to, or even if any, there's a quite limited reference to the responsibility of politics, and what were the reasons that there's no reference to the responsibility of politicians. Well, because of the historical background, since the introduction of nuclear power back in 1950s, there was legislations and citing movements from the U.S. and Japan situation at the time. Japan introduced the nuclear power from U.S., but there was no really a proper modification from U.S. to Japan, as written in the preface of the report. Well, there was a problem in the economic growth dominated by the one political party system, virtually, and the relation between the one party dominance versus legislature. Mr. Hirose, Mr. Matsunaga, the chair of the Commission of the Safety were called upon as witnesses, and also Mr. Matsunaga. Around 2005, Mr. Matsunaga was the head of the NISA, and Mr. Matsunaga was called as the Administrative Vice Minister of METI, but I call himself the person who is to forget things. And technical question, in the investigation of the Commission, was there what were the investigations or experimentation uniquely done by the Commission? And Mr. Mitsuhiko Tanaka, would you please answer the question briefly? Yeah, well, let me be brief. The chart I would like to illustrate is written from page 170 through 177 pages. So description is written for 11 pages or so. The description based upon the nuclear power plant's container vessel. In that container vessel, there is a system to measure the radiation level emitted. And this chart is illustrating the best use of that measuring system. In the reactor, the radioactive substances in the reactor, how those substances were emitted. And when we use that measurement data, the nuclear reactor and the damage status of reactor or possible leakage could have been known, or the pressure vessel pressure equals the container vessel pressures. The pressure would vary in balanced condition. And on that point, we could tell there was some damage of the reactor. So on container vessels, at what time, in what circumstances radiation took place, and what events took place could be measured. So this chart describes all those situations. And on page 171, this one shows the monitoring post. and correspondence to the Martin Pass written. It's a lengthy description, but please read it. There are two areas to be corrected. Page 171, caption of the figure. On top of the caption, X, the 133 is wrong. It's a xenon, so put a small e after X. That stands for xenon. There's the other correction in the chart. On page 178, Unit 3, and the figure 2.1.4.5, and a little bit below the center position, a little bit before 12 o'clock on March 13, there is a collapse of the pressure vessel. But I would like you to delete this description. We don't know when the reactor's pressure vessel was collapsed in unit number 3, so please delete this description. Why we did this? And the TEPCO's the Axing simulation system mark does those type of calculations. They do that, but they actually put holes in here and there so that the simulation results would agree with the phenomena. So it looks the situations are getting better, but they manipulated the simulation with the unknown ultimate objective on the side of TEPCO. So it's not for the convenience purpose, but within the CAMS data, we have accounting data of the radiation, and we use that data and interrelationship with the core and the container vessel. This is how the chart was drawn. And there are 3 points. On page 207, there is analysis, earthquake response analysis. Well, I would like to defer this expression to a later time because of time constraint. There's another point. In here, there are the foreign press who do not have the Japanese, who do not read the Japanese translation. There is an executive summary in English, but it's not really one-to-one correspondence. But it's just a summary version in English language available. The full text in Japanese will be translated into English in full, and that will be available 1 month later or not. It will be posted on the website. Can I spend one more minute to explain important thing? In our group at the Commission, there is another important issue. That is the tsunami and its relation with SBO. When the tsunami hit the area, an emergency generator was inundated, and that was the TEPCO calculation and easily accepted. But 1.5 kilometer further away, there is a wave height meter installed, and it was 1.5 kilometer away from the site. For example, second wave was the highest at 3:35 p.m. on the day. And the TEPCO used that time, the highest wave, as the time when the highest tsunami hit the power plant. But from the locations of the wave height meter installation, we found that there's something at the plant already damaged before the highest wave reached the plant. To justify that, there is a reference data attached to the report, so I would urge you to look at the reference data. So there's some contradiction in what the TEPCO finding in number 1 unit 1A emergency generator was broken probably before the arrival of the highest tsunami wave. So there's a detailed discussions conducted at the conception. So please, Commissioner, so please refer to the detailed data. Let me go to the next question. At the night time of March 11th, the damage to the core and delay of the instruction for evacuation was questioned. On page 304, there is a information described by NISA is described. Mr. Sakurai speaking. I am not sure whether I understood the intent of question 100% or not, but at the night time of March 11, ERSS data on the damage on the core, the forecast arrived at the Prime Minister's residence, and instruction of evacuation made by the Prime Minister's office. What was the relation between the two? When you look at the page 304 of the main report, in the there's a discussion on the timely declarations of emergency situation, and page 318 there is the designations of the evacuation area. On page 414, the operation status of ERSS is given, and on the night of the March 11th, information already arrived at Prime Minister's office. When you read those descriptions on the 3 pages, you'll find the situation. ERSS data arrived on the night of March 11, but evacuation area was decided as written in the report. When you read the paragraphs, you will understand the situation. To answer the question, Mr. Mitsuhiko Tanaka, once again to you. Possibility of the damage to the core by earthquake is still a possibility you mentioned. Is there any stronger evidence to support that? When you say stronger, I don't know when the person who raised the question, he says stronger evidence, when you say stronger than what? I would like to ask the person who questioned. The evidence evidence. Or why we thought that possibility is constructible is that there is no sounds of the SO valves operating in number 1 unit. And the small break LOCA, LOCA, happen, and the pressure vessels decline, or there will be no drop in pressure vessels and water level. But small LOCA with a strong pressure could open up the opening portion after the breakage. So it's a very difficult situation, but there is still a possibility. So those two scenarios we consider. The question was what is the most strongest evidence was a question. Sorry, I misunderstood. I think those are the two evidence. I don't know whether we call them evidences. But the next is the excess intervention by the government. Mr. Nomura. Well, I think the question refers to the action by the Prime Minister's residence. We consider the command and control system established by the law, but there is such a communication route aside from what the law said, and that was the area of concern the Commission had. Probably the person asked the question because the NISA and Offsite Center were not a question of the functioning properly. So that's why the kind of intervention became necessary. I think that's the intention of the person who raised the question. But we consider the communication route established by law was not properly utilized. The 5th floor of the Prime Minister residence, who actually should communicate to the 5th floor between the basement of the Prime Minister residence and the 5th floor. If the 5th floor was not really the communication channel established by the law, but the basement office was. So if the basement response center was utilized properly, the situation could have transpired differently. So there was some confusion whether to the fifth or to the basement of Prime Minister, because the fifth was not really the normal command and control center established by the law. Through the fixed telephone of the TEPCO headquarters, the Prime Minister residence actually made a direct telephone call to the site that was outside the assumption of the law. As a background, there was a distrust to the advice given by the head of NAIIC. There was a mind of distrust or mistrust to the head office of the TEPCO. So there was some distrust to the Mr. Madarame of the NAIIC. So because of this function, there was additional routes not assumed by the law established because of the improper use of the normal channels. Well, there was also indication of the defect of the law established in the Commission in terms of the confidentiality. Secretariat, Secretary General will answer the question. In the law established in the Commission, there is the requirements of confidentiality imposed upon the Commission members and chair, but not imposed to the Secretariat staff. That was the intention of the question, I understood. The staff of the Secretariat actually were employing full-time employee of the national diet, and also there is people working under the contract work agreement. So there are two types of workers working at the Secretariat. For the national diet employees, Article 19 of the national diet employment, there is a requirement for non-disclosure. For the contract of work employees in the agreement and contract, the same provision of non-disclosure requirement as in the National Diet Employment Act was provided in the contract. So the same non-disclosure requirement was imposed upon the workers at the Secretariat. There's another one. And also there's no provision in the law established in the Commission about the implementation of the recommendation after the report be published. The Chairman, well, as I explained to you today, we made a submission of 7 recommendations to the National Diet. When it comes to the implementations of the recommendations, we actually made a strong request to the National Diet. Actually, in the dialogue with the National Diet members beforehand, we made requests to the steady implementations of the recommendations. I really hope that through you, media, we need the support of constituency to actually elect the National Diet members who would be willing to direct efforts to the implementations of recommendations. There are 2 other questions as well. In the English version, there is a paragraph the paragraph could not really locate the corresponding paragraphs in Japanese version. Secretary is checking right now. The next question, on the 17th meeting of the Commission, there is the witness hearing of the governor of the Fukushima Prefecture with respect to the seabird question. And actually, with respect to the figure of the seabird in the press conference, I think Chairman said that number will be reflected in the report, and also Secretariat is working to check this point. Then I would like to open the floor for questions from the press. First, I would like to tell you that this hall is only available up until 8 p.m. We got the permission of extending the session by 1 hour. So this meeting place will be available until 9 o'clock. Until that time, we will be accommodating your questions. We would like to accommodate as many questions as possible. So can I remit one question per person in this session? And the gentleman in blue shirt on the first row, would you please identify yourself and affiliation before you speak? Nico, my name is Nanao. Thank you very much for your efforts. On page 276, on the 5:35 p.m. of the March 15, in the video teleconference, there was no sound of the Prime Minister Kang. And this report actually retrieved what the Prime Minister Kang mentioned, saying that the damage is so huge that whole Japan will be jeopardized. And according to the record of TEPCO, the report said, well, actually, if you did not really confirm what the TEPCO record was correct in quoting Prime Minister Kang, then it should be a wrong mistake. And the video was requested to be open, but how did the Commission consider about the video be open? On page 276, there was no sound available on the TV conference. And we just said that we actually collected a fact from TEPCO. Did you confirm with the Prime Minister Kang and Prime Minister's residence for the sake of fairness? In the Commission, Prime Minister Kang said that it will be all right to make the record of TEPCO open to the public. Well, it's a question whether it's been said or not. But actually, whatever left in the record, what is valuable was made open. When it comes to TEPCO TV conference, we visited the TEPCO to allow them to see. So the ownership belong to the TEPCO, so we are not entitled to decide whether that footage would be open or not. That's decision should rest with TEPCO, but by exerting public pressure, probably TEPCO would be able to decide to make those TV conference record public. The foreign press in the back.
Süddeutsche Zeitung, Germany, Neidhardt. I assume some Diet members will ask you if you recommend a criminal investigation into this topic. I mean, there are several people who obviously lied to you, or that's my impression when I attended the meetings. Thank you.
Well, I heard that kind of opinion quite often, but that's not the matter the Commission decides. As I said at the beginning, the witnesses we called to the hearing, including the politician. Those are the people who were responsible for a certain area at the accident around the time. Actually, we are not the experts of raising question, but there are some witnesses saying that I don't remember, I forget. But we try to make all those sessions public so that the citizen can see, and the judgment of that answer rests with the citizens. That's the thing we could do, and we actually broadcasted live of the session, including English translations, and I really hope that could be evaluated properly. And this is the first attempt since the modern history of the National Diet that kind of attempt was made. I just wait for the evaluation by the public. And so when it comes to the criminal procedure, that's not the Commission could decide.
Takahashi,
Asahi Shimbun. I didn't understand the answer previously given quite sure. Involvement of the politics was questioned. actually, you said the regulatory capture and being regulated and the party regulates were reversed in their relationship. In that process, well, as the history tells, there was some involvement of the politics. There was a strong influence by the utility industry to the politics by sending their own politicians or their members or huge financial contribution to the political party. Why the report didn't really refer to that fact? There's any intention not referring to that. Actually, that was 6 months after the earthquake. Excuse me, 9 months after the accident in December, that commission started investigation. And there was only 6 months we could do the investigation. There was limited resources, and we have to prioritize what we could do. Actually, we thought that the defense in depth was one of the issues. In the preface written by myself, describes that one-party dominance and the seniority system, lifetime employment, there were a structural relationship with the public sector and the industry, and there's sort of mindset for the people of Japan to take that relationship for granted. And there are many books in and outside Japan. The reports and also foreign reports were issued already. So I think the kind of the political involvement will be self-revealing, and be they political elections or labor union movements. There are many books and reports referring to that. So we thought the Commission had a very active discussions on the possibility of including political involvement, but because of a resource constraint and prioritization, we didn't make refer to directly. The foreign press in the center on the front row.
Lloyd Parry of The Times. Ms. Sakiyama referred to the very obvious fact that, as well as having a large number of nuclear power reactors, Japan has very frequent earthquakes. Given these facts and also the cultural aspects which Dr. Kurokawa refers to in his preface, isn't it reasonable to come to a further conclusion, to add to the ones in your report, that a country like Japan simply shouldn't have nuclear reactors at all? And the second question is about the timing of this report. Do you regret that this report didn't appear before the restart of the OI reactors? And do you think that the decision to restart OI was appropriate? I realize that both these questions are not within your terms of reference, but I'm sure that as experts deeply immersed in the subject, you have personal opinions you can share with us.
Thank you very much. Regarding that, Mr. Fukano, who was dealing with the OI-related issues at that time, and that is the reason we had Mr. Fukano appear as a witness. And another point is, as far as our recommendations vis-a-vis the Diet are concerned, the Diet needs to watch the administrative branch. And as far as the nuclear accident that had happened, we've found out a lot of things about the back end. So therefore, we are publicizing this to the people. So the legislative branch, what sort of checking does it need to do vis-a-vis the administrative branch? So therefore, having heard the discussions taking place regarding that, we are saying we'd like to do as much as possible. However, it's the legislative arm and the administrative arms that need to think about that and what the Diet members need to do and the relationship of power between the two arms branches. Would that be a sufficient answer to your question? Very sorry, the microphone is not being utilized. Well, as you had mentioned, we didn't mention that because that's outside of our mandate. And as you had rightly pointed out, yes, the person in the back, please, with the blue shirt on. Nishimura from Hokkaido Shimbun. Putting together the results of your investigation, I'd like to pay respect to your great efforts. I'd like to ask the chairman the following question. You have found out about various things, and there are conclusions that you've arrived at. And looking at this report, frankly speaking, it seems as if very expected things are written about. For example, it's not a natural disaster that caused the accident, but it's a man-made disaster. And so, from the point of view of a natural disaster, things are not being considered from that perspective. So what needs to be done? So the 7 recommendations are put together. And on-site is the operator, and the off-site is the government, you had mentioned. And in the NSC as well, this is being, and the AEC as well, this is being talked about as far as their mandate is concerned. Decontamination and compensation are issues that need to be further discussed, and an independent commission needs to be set up for that purpose. But as far as the various commission activities are concerned, maybe there are some conclusions you've been able to arrive at, and it's only because you were an independent investigation commission that you've been able to do so. Could you touch upon that? Well, I'd like to ask you all, there's been these many problems, and what sort of awareness did the people of the country have, thanks to the media, vis-a-vis the outside world? To what extent did the Japanese media relate to the outside world what was being done or not done? This might have been an issue. It's the network age. So therefore, the Arab Spring was also indicative of that as well. And we have in front of the eyes of the world and in front of the eyes of the people of our country, simultaneous interpretation provided. And this is one of the progress that we've been able to make. And so it's very different from what we've been doing up until now as far as our commission work is concerned. Do you not feel that is the case as well? Yes, the next person, please. Takada from Yomiuri Shimbun. As far as this commission is concerned, you're not going to be handling the issue of compensation to those who were victims of this disaster, but the responsibility on the part of the government as well as TEPCO is being looked into. As far as the government and the responsibility that it needs to take to decide the compensation and the amounts and what not. Chairman, if you could talk about that. Well, we have not been charged to also consider this as well as part of our mandate. There have been various books that have been published, and you understand the historical background. So what needs to be done? It was the accident on March 11th that for the first time in our constitutional history, we've started this discussion with one another. And we would like to utilize this momentum and further move forward and discuss with you all in a more open manner. And we'd like to share this process with as many of our citizens as possible, especially when we're doing it in English as well. We have to think about the response of our elite and also think about this process and how it is a way in which maybe we can change our country. As far as the effect that your findings might have on compensation considerations, well, I'm sure that each member of our commission has their own opinions regarding that. We'd like to have someone from the foreign media there at the corner in the middle, please. Middle row.
Thank you. Times. First, like to, there's a part of the report I don't understand when it says that the government should have been ready to consider withdrawal by all of the personnel from Fukushima Daiichi. It says 全員停滞が必要なこと可能性を真剣。
He is now reading the portion.
Is there a situation where it would have been permissible for TEPCO to abandon the plant? And very quickly, if I may, do the other people on the Commission agree with the conclusion that the fundamental causes of this crisis were cultural, that it's a failure of Japanese culture? Thank you.
一つは、もし原子力の
Well, first of all, as far as the nuclear power station accident, the health and safety of the people, if that is the top priority, then that would have been made into law, but that does not exist as law. And that is the on-site accident. There are various things that are said. But when severe accidents occur, and that is not written within Japanese law. So how is it that the personnel need to evacuate or withdraw? There is no mindset. There is no complete consideration regarding that. Scientists too, and the media too, but up until now, how shall I put this? The process that had existed was insufficient. For example, there's in England, the Nuclear Regulatory Office rule changing that took place in February, and the health and safety of the people and the environment were the words that began their effort. And so things have changed in France as well, and the transparency of nuclear power, making that into law. And why is it that in Japan this was not done? That was a message that we are transmitting to our citizens and to the world. That is the historical background, and the laws and rules and regulations were not in that manner. So therefore, we can only be reactive as a result. May I add, as far as the complete pullout of all the workers from TEPCO, from the power station, when this was heard from them, the Prime Minister's office maybe had taken an irresponsible action, and we had pointed this out in our report. Well, this was a misunderstanding to begin with, but they had thought that there was such a request that was being made, but they were avoiding getting on the phone at the Prime Minister's office, and there were not discussions that were held as to what needs to be done, and there was just a determination made to put a stop to the idea of complete pullout. But let's say Unit 2 was to explode. What would have happened? And no one really considered this possibility and discussed it seriously. And that is an issue within the Prime Minister's office, and we did point that out as an issue. The speaker is not using a microphone. Please stand by. So therefore, as far as this is concerned, it's not limited to the electric power company. Why isn't it that everyone speaks out? That's written in the preface. The gentleman next to that gentleman with the glasses, please. Hasegawa from Tokyo Shimbun. As far as the new regulatory body is concerned, there was a bit of a comment from Chairman Kurokawa about the AEC and the NSC and other regulatory bodies. For the Diet to come up with such a regulating body, having confirmed with Minister Hosono the various requirements that need to be fulfilled by the members of that regulatory body, that has already been touched upon. It seems as if that the government will be selecting the members of that regulatory body that will be established. However, according to your fifth recommendation, it is that you are recommending that it should be a third party. There should be independence assured in the selection of the members of those regulatory bodies. So how is it that you judge what is going on currently, Chairman Kurokawa? Well, we've been asked the Diet to do this, and the minister is also a member of the Diet. So how is it that the government looks at this NAIIC, the National Diet of Japan Fukushima Nuclear Accident Independent Investigation Commission. But when we think about the bills that are submitted by the Diet, you have to think about the relationship between the legislative branch and the administrative branch, and there needs to be check and balances taking place between the branches. And we've been talking to the President of the House of Councillors as well as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. From the point of view of Mr. Edano, he was saying we would not be just looking at the recommendations of the NAIIC, but we want them to please fulfill their responsibility as the government. Yes, the person in the very front, please.
Takemoto from Kyoto. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Nomura. At the beginning, at your statement, the Commission meetings be open in the public, and you actually emphasize the significance of Commission being open to the public. I understand that. But there are many witnesses who were not so willing to speak before the audience, but making the meetings open. And what did you see as the merits and demerits of the meeting being open? Well, when it comes to the merits of the opened session, that is exposure to the public. Some witnesses hesitate to answer, and some witnesses said, I don't understand, I don't remember. But when the public see or saw the witnesses, they would understand better. I think it was a quite rare opportunity for the public to see the session in live in public. That is the merit. On the other side of the coin, when the meeting is in public, even if the person might have remembered, sometimes they said, I don't remember, to avoid being responsible for what he was responsible for. So sometimes people could only speak with the promise of not being public. Well, in hearing of more than 1,100 people, we have to really promise to the person that information the person will give would not be made public. But anyway, there are both sides of making the meeting public. We only have 15 minutes remaining. Well, I do not think that all the hands could be accommodated. I apologize for that. And to the extreme left, the gentleman. Jikocho Press. My name is Uesugi. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your efforts over a long time. Thank you very much for opening your door to allow the free journalists and the media to participate in the open sessions. In the report, at the beginning of the report, the chair, Kurokawa, referred to the regulatory capture, the political and public and private sector joined together, and also the role to be the negative role played by media was another element. Mr. Nomura actually referred to this point at the last part of the report. But Chairman Kurokawa mentioned several times about the negative role of the media because of the establishment of press club. And sometimes information did not flow freely, you said. But what do you think about it? Well, that's a point we wanted to include in the report, but because of the lack of manpower and time, against our intention, we couldn't include that point into the report, negative role of the press club as such. And also there are many books were available. In the economic growth, the politics and private and public sectors and medias and academia, all those were involved. and the regulatory capture and confidence turning into the arrogance, that kind of situation emerged. Well, because of the constraint of time, we didn't really go deeper into the role to be played by media. From our experiences, and by receiving a certain information by the government, and then to transfer the information to be conveyed to be the public. There are some journalists who played the role of public relations of the government, but in validations of the accident, we couldn't verify who did what in media. So that's why I just referred to the media's role in my personal observation in the report. Please. Asahi Shimbun, Oshika is my name. I would like to address question to Chair Kurokawa. In the various the Lodge Examination meeting, the excess intervention by the Prime Minister residence was mentioned, and also there were a question raised to the witnesses to that end. Well, the Commission emphasized excess intervention by the Prime Minister residence, but in the report, I think there was, so to say, this element was toned down. The other elements seems to be emphasized in the points. The summary of points discussion. There was a change in the tone of voices by the Commission in editorials of Asahi and column of the Yomiuri. Because of constructive criticism by the media, you tone down the element. No, that's not the case. I made a comment one day after. We were scheduled to have the summary of points for 3 times, but actually we only could have the 2 meetings for the summary of points. Mr. Oshika's comments was taken note of. Mr. Nomura, I think you should say something on this point. The summary of points were the summation of points of the certain areas. The image of the final report stayed unchanged. Probably the way I said was sometimes misleading, as if our emphasis was changed or that intervention was toned down or so was toned down. But image we had at the beginning of the Commission stayed unchanged. The gentleman in the middle. Fujita, freelance reporter. I would like to give this question to Mr. Nomura. In a town meeting of NAIIC, if I remember correctly, one of the evacuees said that nobody tried to take responsibility because of despite the fact that he was suffering from the difficulties. That was a last comment by the evacuee. And Mr. Nomura, in responding to the comment, says that Commission will pursue the responsibility. Did you think that you pursued the responsibility of causing that dire situation by the publication of the final report? In terms of the criminal investigation or the damage compensation for the affected people? Well, this is a hypothetical question that you might not be able to answer, but what will be the effect of this report? What actually were the reference materials which support the final report? If people actually try to pursue the availability of the reference material to support the final report, would that supporting document be the document which carry enough power of evidence? Well, I said we pursue responsibility. I think you were listening to the evacuees' comments and our explanation. By submitting this report to the National Diet, National Diet have several powers. The Commission itself does not have a power to do the investigation by power. But the National Diet has a power to forcibly conduct investigation. The National Diet's power to do the investigation by force could be triggered without our commission making requests to do so to the National Diet. So if there is enough justification, then the National Diet could conduct the investigation by its power. But we commission members are not the prosecutors and not the judges at the court. So the Commission cannot really pursue responsibility directly by exercise of power given to the Commission because we do not have any statutory power. And neither the law establishing a Commission give the Commission such power. But by submission of the report that could lead to the specific action of the National Diet, and also if some readers of the document find some good evidences to pursue the damage responsibility of the government, then the readers could pursue. So as a commission, we can't really identify the area the commission could pursue because we are not equipped with that power. But we could gather many materials and hear the voices of many people. So although the findings might sound something you take for granted, but I think there's a good body of supporting materials. Although there might be books, a lot of books which include some assumptions and guesses, but this report is heavy enough because this report is not written by the guess or assumptions, but supported by a lot of materials. So there will be some effect of the report exercising on the society. If there is a request for evidence, if there is some legitimate force of power given to the court, prosecutors, or National Diet, then based upon the criteria of disclosure of the materials, which will be decided later, then those materials will be disclosed. But that doesn't mean the free disclosure of information unless it is duly decided to do so. We have only 5 minutes, so we would like to limit the questions to 3 persons. Those who have never raised questions before. Then on the second row, the lady. Reuter, and my name is Maeda. The Chair Kurokawa said previously that the restarting of the other nuclear power station belongs outside the mandate. And on page 81, you refer to 21 commercial nuclear reactor as a in terms of anti-seismic safety, this issue is common to other reactors. If the government permits the reopening, restart of the nuclear reactors in the future, that could be a very dangerous decision. What do you think about this line? We actually asked the present head of the NAIIC to be witness in the session. There were 30 items concerned. And there was a question about the intention of the government and what about the 30 items to be checked. And this is something the government would do, and how the judiciary arm check the government activities would be the thrust of the question. That was the exact reason why Mr. Fukano was called upon. Out of 30 items, there were 15 items related to the earthquake to be checked. And actually, as Mr. Fukano, that you have only 15 items for earthquake checks based upon past experiences. And at that time, they talk about back check, but back check is the Japanese English. In NAIIC, IAEA, the back check is not the word used in those international organizations. And if it's not sufficient, backfitting is very important. Otherwise, the reactor will have to stop. But in Japan, the back check, Japanese English, was discussed in the mission. And we stated that was a problem in the mission. Although it was a political decision, they say, but in a person of the various capacities says that they will pursue responsibility. But in what way is another question. Even in the corporate setting, when some scandal happened, the 3 or 4 executive persons made a deep bow at the press conference. Would it be the forum that they say that they will pursue responsibility? That shouldn't be. That kind of discussion should be made to pursue responsibility. It's not really quitting your job, but people should be committed within their capacity, in what form they can discharge the responsibility. That was one of the questions we raised. Last question, we would like to accommodate. I'm sorry, this will be the last question. Those who would be the first person, who never spoke before. Okay, gentlemen. Yoshida from Nishihon Shimbun. I would like to raise a question to Mr. Ishibashi. In the Commission, with respect to the reopening of the nuclear reactor, you said it will be outside the mandate of the Commission. But not only tsunami, there could have been some effect by the earthquake, as your report said. But the government, on the assumptions of reopening of the nuclear reactors, the government made an overall judgment of what the expert had to say, and the government concluded there were not major damage by the earthquake. So the emergency countermeasures to be taking place from the loss of power to the damage to the core. So that was the direction government is heading for. The government Investment Commission report and this Diet Commission reports will be evaluated and considered in their totality. But what is your line of thought on the criteria for reopening the other nuclear power plants? Well, a loss of power by tsunami is one scenario, but what would be the effect of earthquake? And what would be the possible effect of earthquake on the nuclear power and its implications on the reopening of the nuclear reactors? Time constraints there, so I would like it very brief. As often said in the past, it's outside the mandate of the our commission, as you mentioned. So I hope the legislative body will consider the report in full. In Appendix 2 of the report, we list the items to be closely followed by a national diet, which include the complete execution of back-check, and they let the outcomes of back-check open to the public on the basis of the causes of the Fukushima nuclear power plant, as questioned by the lady in the press. Based upon all those items, we really request the national diet to consider those items fully. So that's not the question that the Commission is entitled to answer directly. Last question was very important. Mr. Mitsuko Tanaka, I hope should have explained to you, if there was no tsunami, what would have been the situation? Would have there been any damage by earthquake alone without tsunami? If tsunami did not occur, then the damage would not have been that large. That's a question, very important question. That could be possible that the nuclear power station will not be safe. We don't have time, do we? Sorry. I see still the hands for question, but I really hope that you could have your question answered in individual session from tomorrow and onward. Would you please forward your question to the Secretariat, and we will schedule the individual meeting with the Commission members at a later time. Microphone, please. Microphone. Microphone, please.
それも分かりますけど。
十分時間は。
Well, I think we spend long enough time, including briefing to the press and press conference. Couldn't we extend the session? I knew there would be such a request, but well, let me give you my comment. This is the first time. Well, we made a submission of report to the presidents of the houses, both houses. And tomorrow, according to the law, the Commission will complete its mission. So I know how you feel, the press people would feel, and we would like to think together, but I can't really accommodate your request as the Commission. And also the facility usage policy of today's meeting hall, of this conference hall. Microphone, please. After this conference, can we interview with the Commission member freely? As a private person, the members will be able to answer the question. A microphone, please. That's not what the Commission is able to decide. A microphone. You have the accountability that to answer the questions for the press in and out of Japan. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Well, how the law could be interpreted? Well, for the 2 weeks after the submission of the report. But there's a different interpretation of law that the Commission is considered to be a complete mission when the report is submitted. Different interpretations of the law established in the Commission exist. Microphone, please speak the microphone.
ですね、こちらの冒頭2時間というふうなことで。
Well, regarding that, we've said 2 hours, and I do understand that you've all participated with that understanding. Well, it's not myself that decided that this would be our last day. We had the President of the House of Councilors and the Speaker of the House of Representatives also assemble with us and decide on the date. The questioners and the comment is not being relayed utilizing a microphone. We do understand your requests.
もうよろしいでしょうか。はい。マイクランナーがおりませんので。
There is no mic runner, so we would like to adjourn. There are still comments from the press which are not being relayed to the members utilizing a microphone. The interpreting booth is not able to hear what is being said. It looks as if we can extend by 15 minutes and receive your questions. Would that be all right? I do apologize. It's just 15 minutes. There are still comments being made by the press. We do feel that we have answered your questions sufficiently. Yes, please. If you could please pass the microphone to the questioner. Miyajima from monthly magazine Factor. As far as the government's commission is concerned, they would not look into where the responsibility lies, but your NAIC came up with the conclusion that it is a man-made disaster, and I do feel that this will remain in history. And for those people who are in Fukushima, they will read this report and feel encouraged and take the actions necessary. But if you look at the Fukushima situation right now, as to whom it should be that should take the responsibility, from Chairman Kurokawa and from Mr. Nomura, I'd like to hear who it ought to be. As far as this report is concerned, Ms. Hachiska, can you take this report back with pride? The responsibility issue, maybe you feel, is something that needs to be further explored. I'd like to ask for your opinion on that as well, Ms. Hachizuka. Well, first, I'd like to begin. As far as the responsibility issue is concerned, amongst ourselves, many people say, well, who is it that is most responsible? I have never used the term man-made disaster, but amongst ourselves, when we have our discussions, there are people who understand this is a man-made disaster. So whether I can take this report back to the temporary housing with pride or not, you had asked me about that. I myself, these past 6 months, have been making my appeal in a tearful manner, and that is my work as a member of this commission. And that is what I, Hachiska, have done. There will be some praise vis-a-vis this report, but there will also be various criticisms that will be lodged against us. But I do feel that to a certain extent, we will be able to make our report, and I will be able to, in a proud manner, take this report back to our people in Fukushima. As far as finding out whom it was that was responsible and what sort of actions were taken or not taken, and as a result of that, whom ought to be held responsible, that from the point of view of a legal person, it's not that I've heard all the assertions from the persons concerned, so it's very difficult to make a judgment as a judge might make in court. Exploring a responsibility, we can utilize the criminal legal system and the court system. As far as such actions that might be taken in the future and how this report could be utilized for those purposes, by explaining this structure, we can shed light on perhaps there might be responsibility that would lie with certain individuals and organizations, companies, perhaps the government, and how is it that we can change the Japanese society. This provides a hint for that, and this is a way in which we can provide the retribution to the people who have suffered. And if they feel that this is meaningful, that we've put together the results of this report, that would be something that we would be grateful for. So therefore, if our issues which have been deep-seated come to light, then that would be something that would be welcomed, I believe. Yes, for the front row, the person with the raised hand with the facial hair, please. Kimura from Asahi Shimbun. When we think about the diet and its right to investigate, from the evening of the 13th to the morning of the 14th, how many of the members of the commission looked at that situation? And did you look at the TV conference footage, all of them, if you could talk about that factual matter? That issue has been asked time and again from the Asahi journalists. Does it need to be answered again? I do believe, Mr. Nomura, that you had already answered that question before. Yes, we have looked at that video footage. Yes, I've looked at a portion of the footage, but not all of them. There have been investigators that are cooperating, and various persons have participated to figure out the facts. And there have been very in-depth discussions that have taken place and in-depth analyses that have taken place as well based on what has been seen. What was the first question? I do feel that the chairman, as well as three others, mainly have looked at the live footage. The lady there, please. Well, as far as that is concerned, for those that we wanted to have come and conduct our hearings with, they participated. From Mori from Asahi Shimbun, from Chairman Kurokawa, there was a question with regard to why you didn't touch upon the responsibility of the Liberal Democratic Party. But looking at this report, before March the 11th, there were some areas, when you think about TEPCO and the regulatory bodies, vis-a-vis the Liberal Democratic Party, there has not been any criticisms that have been lodged. I'm sure you are trying to maintain neutrality, but are you providing for what needs to be provided for? And as far as the right to investigate is concerned, there's a lot of material that has not been disclosed, and there's going to be further consideration as to what could be disclosed. You could not obtain these materials and documents with that permission to disclose everything. I've talked about this in the preface as well. Where is it that we will place the priority? I said close to 50 years there's been one party rule, and it only took place, this accident took place on March 11th, 18 months after the administration changed. I do understand what you pointed out. What I'm saying is there is a lot that needs to be done. And can I please ask why you didn't extend it? I said 6 months was the period, but you could have changed this in the law. That's correct. However, that depends on to what extent people are calling for that. We were told that 6 months is the period we were given, but 6 months was given to you, but that's if the law was not changed, revised. We did consult with the Diet members, with those who created this law, and they told us that. So you were told that the law could not be changed. That's right, we've consulted with them. Yes, then. It seems as if we'll take one more question, please.
Sorry. With respect to the answer given by the chairman, after the appointment of the commission, approximately 6 months was the period given. And the chairman says that he consulted with the joint commission of the both houses, and the joint commission said that no extension. But there was no such fact, so I would like to correct what the chairman said. Well, in terms of the submission of the report, I just asked within approximately 6 months, and they said yes. So, and how can I say? In terms of the National Diet's power to conduct investigation, The Commission can make a request to the National Diet to invoke their power to do investigation only when there was an availability of the material. Even we requested the party to submit the document. So the National Diet members or National Diet have this power to conduct investigation by the power of National Diet for a long time, and they has the power now and in the future. So it's not really actually something that we conduct the investigation. So in the investigations of the Commission, even we thought that we could do an investigation without resorting to that means of requesting National Diet to do investigation. And actually, for the press usage, there should be some rule of disclosure. But within the investigation, we could get the information. Well, let me modify. There's no discussion with the joint committee of the both houses about the extension of the duration of existence of the commission. What the chairman said was that within what time the report be submitted. So within 6 months was the answer given by the joint commission of the both houses. It took a long time to identify the problems of the regulatory body, and there would be a lot of fact-finding and investigations, and to actually to identify the problems of the one-party system, specifically within the time available to us. Well, let me conclude the accepting questions. Lastly, can I invite Chair to give some comment? Lastly. Sorry, sound like formality, complication, but thank you for joining us until late at night. I really feel thankful for your cooperation and the support by the people of the country. The recommendation would be never realized unless the strong support by the people. So through you, it is very important that recommendation be pushed and supported by the people of the country, for all those people who cooperate with investigations, and for the birth of the commission for the first time in the modern history, established by the law. It was only possible with the support by the National Diet. We are very thankful for their initiative. I really hope that the affected people would come back to their normal life as soon as possible. And within the 6 months, we conducted the activities we did for the past 6 months. I hope could be of any contributions to the betterment of the situations of the affected people and of the future. I really hope that recommendation be implemented, and I truly feel what you would like to say. And there's a various attempts and measures in overseas, but when you look at the Kemeny report, they're in a similar situation, be there public sector, media, private corporations, how best we can endeavor in our own capacity to change the society of Japan on a global basis I really hope that the work of the Nippon Commission could be really used very effectively in the National Diet. This was the first attempt in the modern history to have investigation enacted by the law, and in the last several months, everybody worked very late every night, and only with your support and understanding, we could conduct our investigation up until this moment. We would like to see the recommendation to go forward even one step further. For that, we need your cooperation, and I really hope that the people in and out of Japan to watch very closely how the things will progress in the future. I'm afraid that we couldn't really accommodate all of your questions today. And from tomorrow and onward, we will try to arrange the interview schedule upon your request. Thank you very much. This completes the press conference. Good evening.